everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser, and we are at episode 351 of Real Hawk Talk. Unbelievable that we've gotten to this point, and the only way we get there is with an amazing group of co-hosts who I'm so thrilled to see for a variety of reasons, not the least of which my voice, I think, is starting to decide that these full-day pods I've been doing and triple pod days, it's not so fond of it. So we'll see how long my voice lasts today, but I'm so excited to actually listen and not just talk. We've got Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB. Evan, how you doing tonight, man?
Oh my God, I'm slow to the draw on the off mute. I'm doing well. Yeah, kind of been glued to my phone the past couple of days. I'm at the point where I think I'm gonna take Twitter off my phone again and just go back to like only accessing through the laptop. But Seattle obviously made a pair of acquisitions today, which got the blood pumping again. But yeah, it's been an interesting free agency so far. Relatively quiet, but it seems like they may have some moves still left in them. So
we'll find out. I'm eager to hear your thoughts about all of them. And also, we've got Dayna O'Gorman at Dayna OG on Twitter, the matriarch of this podcast, keeps us all in line and has some of the wisest takes of the bunch. Dayna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I was thinking about before we started, sometimes I wish that people could live through like these moments in Seahawks, like free agency, the draft, forever, with Evan, because the roller coaster that is Evan during these is some of the most fun you'll ever had. He's furious. He's thrilled. He's furious. He's thrilled. Evan, you made the last 2 days just so much fun. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I will say this though. I feel like I'm generally more positive than most of the fan base. I feel like in terms of what I'm seeing perception wise,
especially this year for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's been a lot of doom and gloom out there. Like
it's true,
and I understand why. The pain of emotionally losing some of these players. The message that DK just put out, I thought was excellent. I saw your tweet come through on that, Brian. But overall, I'm pretty like, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like there's some clear upgrades they need to make, some losses they've made, suffered from over the past couple of days. But anyways, I'm sure we'll get into it. So.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I really wish I could post, and maybe like 3 or 4 years ago I would have posted, but I'm trying to be a little bit more measured in some of the things I share. But Evan's reaction to the Kevin Zeitler signing with Tennessee.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Actually,
what was it, Brian? What was my reaction?
It was so professional. Like it was very professional. That is just honestly, I think it's probably the reaction that every Seahawks fan who cares about the Seahawks had, is like, that was our last hope, is getting Kevin Zeitler.
I've wanted him for a couple of off seasons now. Every offseason, I'm like, Kevin Zeitler's a free agent. This is our opportunity. I know he's old, but he's still good. He could fit a need, and he's a veteran, and he's a stud. Please, God, just give me 1 year in Seattle, and this motherfricker goes anywhere but Seattle every single offseason. It's so annoying. But
what do you think is going to be more like? What do you think is going to happen first, Dayna? That Kevin Zeitler will sign with the Seahawks, or that John Schneider will spend money on a free agent offensive lineman?
Zero. Neither. I don't think either is going to happen. I think it's pie in the sky. No, I think Kevin is just like, I'm not dealing with the rain. I'm not coming there no matter how much Evan texts me and stalks me and wants me to show up there. And I have to say, I would have been way more shocked had he spent some money on the offensive line than him not. So it's interesting, but.
Well, so one of the big moves, and Dayna, I'm going to come back to you with this one.
Mm-hmm.
I did a live show earlier today to talk about Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the receiver that they signed. And I was like, this is actually like a better signing than I would have thought. While I'm doing that, as is always the case with our shows, news breaks. DeMarcus Lawrence is signed. I spent most of the episode calling him Dexter Lawrence. So there's some group of Seahawks fans that are like, wait, what? We got Dexter Lawrence? I think most of them are like, God, this guy has a channel where he talks about the Seahawks and the NFL, and he doesn't know the difference between Dexter Lawrence and DeMarcus Lawrence. So Dexter Lawrence is not a Seahawk. He remains with the
No.
Giants.
Mhm.
DeMarcus Lawrence is a Seahawk now, signed a 3-year deal, $42 million, $18 million guaranteed. Dana, you're a lover of defense. How
Yeah.
did you feel when they signed DeMarcus Lawrence?
I was like, huh, at first, okay. There's the wrong letter in front of that position there, but that's okay. You know, we were still waiting for an offensive lineman at that point. But I was texting with my son, who immediately is like, you would have been so thrilled if this was 7 years ago. It's like, no, I'm thrilled now. And the reason is that, number one, the dude is so good, and he's been good for a long time. And yes, he was injured last year. Yes, we know he had only played, just a few games. That doesn't make him not good. So I was really excited. Do I think he's the player he used to be? No, age just does that over time, right? But he is a veteran presence on an already pretty good line. We have so many young players. I think he just brings a little stability there. And I know people don't put a lot of stock into PFF grades, but 91.4 overall. Oh my God. Like, I had said to you guys in our chat that if John was going to John and not sign an offensive lineman, because I really never thought that he would, go get a veteran somewhere that is going to make a difference either in leadership or on the field. And that's this pick for me. And I was pretty happy with MVS too, but that's a different subject. But I was very excited to see him come on board. Have you guys seen that video of, who was it? CD Lamb
CeeDee
reading
Lamb.
that news.
Uh-huh.
That was like, he was like, whoa, like this was not what they wanted. So I'm excited. And we have to credit, Aiden Dirty for all of that, because that he brought him here.
Yeah, so I'm going to read
I-
you. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to say, Dana, I love that you mentioned the CD Lamb thing, because one of the things I like to do personally whenever we sign a free agent is check to see the opposing team subreddit. If you use Reddit, they have like little sub forums for their teams. And I wanted to see what the reaction was from Cowboys fans in losing him from Dallas. And overall, they were pretty sad about it. I think it's important to mention that although he was injured last year, I pulled up the stats on this. In 3.5 games last year, this guy had 3 sacks, a forced fumble, 4 tackles for loss, and 5 QB hits in 3.5 games last year. Yes, he's 32 years old. He's older. He's not in his prime, right? But this guy's still productive. And from what we understand, a really strong veteran presence and voice in the locker room. And I think that might be one of the underrated reasons they brought him actually to Seattle. So depends if he could stay healthy, but the guarantees guys on this, they're less than 50% of the deal. This is, from my understanding, we haven't seen the structure of this deal, but 18 million guaranteed. That's just going to be a signing bonus in his first year base salary. Like, my hunch is they're going to be able to pull the trigger on cutting him in year 2 if it comes to it. So I don't think this is like some big long-term commitment. Yeah, everybody saw $42 million, but the chances of him staying all 3 years are highly unlikely. But I think they're just doubling down on the dominance of that defensive line. This is a stacked group on that side of the football. And yeah, Seattle's offensive line may suck, but John Schneider is telling opponents that their offensive line is going to suck as well, when playing us. So, I think it's a really good signing, to be honest with you. It's one of the best values I think I've seen so far.
Well, let me tell you guys one other thing, that you talked about those numbers for DeMarcus Lawrence. I'm going to keep making sure I get that right. I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong now that I've messed it up in my head already. You mentioned he had 3 sacks in 3.5 games. Well, a Seahawks edge player signed with the Tennessee Titans for $10 million, and his name is Draymond Jones, and he was a pretty high-priced addition a few years ago. Draymond Jones played in 17 games last year, and he had 4 sacks. So, and he also had 1 forced fumble. So I think that, you got to feel pretty good about the additions there. And the fact that you've got somebody who's got the potential to be a rotational guy. He could be your best pass rusher. He's somebody that, as I think Dana, you said, can be a mentor for some of the, Boye Mafe and for Derek Hall to learn from. And I think people forget that even when like Frank Clark came into the league and he was a promising rookie, he was learning from Michael Bennett. He was learning from the guy, Cliff Averill. He was learning from vets that were on that team. And so the young guys on the Seahawks edge, I don't think have had. I mean, Uchenna Nwosu is absolutely a leader, but he's never going to be just thought of as like an alpha pass rusher. And so having someone that's been in that position and has done that, I think means a lot. And if you look at the Seahawks Instagram and their reactions when Abe Lucas saw it, when Byron Murphy saw it, Leonard Williams, on down the line, these guys were really excited. Tariq Woolen. And so it's good for them because they've had a little bit of a jarring 2 weeks. Like, I don't think they expected their team to look the way it looks. And I think it probably feels good for them to add that in. One thing I was kind of curious about for both of you is I saw somebody, I can't remember who, tweet, I just don't understand what the Seahawks are doing. Like, what's the vision? This is the national person who doesn't, it's just like everyone thinking that the Seahawks are rebuilding, and then they sign a 32-year-old, soon to be 33-year-old defensive end to a big contract. So what do you think they're doing? Like, what do you think they think they're doing? Dana, I'll start with you.
I hope I can say this. Hell if I know, because I will tell you this. I think what you have been saying for the last few days is correct. The Seahawks are reeling, right? This was not their plan. This is not what they had in mind. They got thrown a couple curveballs. And so I feel like they're scrambling a bit. But I don't think that we should take away, as much as it hurts me, because I am not the biggest John Schneider fan right now, right? Like I'm in Derek's camp of we're a little mad at him right now. But at the same time, I think that what they're doing is they're trying to, okay, we're playing catch up in the offense because this is not exactly what we expected. But they had a plan for defense. And I think they're trying to stick to that. They wanted to bring in, someone else on the line. I think that they wanted a pass rusher, a veteran one. I think that the defensive plan is still going with what they were doing. I think the rebuilding conversation happened when DK left, when Geno left, right? That was more, so that threw them on the offensive side of the ball. I'm sorry. But I think what is on the defensive side of the ball, this might have been part of their plan all along, is to bring in a free agent, a veteran presence there. I would never, ever expect John Schneider to say, we're rebuilding, because it's just not who he is. And we've heard that. We've seen it over and over again. But at the same time, I think on their offense, they're now, yes, we have to rebuild this offense a little bit because of the curveballs that was thrown to them early. So still, hell if I know.
Evan, are the Seahawks rebuilding?
I've been actually thinking about this question all day. My gut tells me they are. They're saying they're not, but I look at their actions, and this is a football team that needs a lot of talent in a lot of different spaces. And I don't think Sam Darnold is a guy that they're committing to super long-term. I think they're starting to put the pieces in place to drop a rookie quarterback into this system, either this year or next. I think when you zoom out of this offseason, I see them pulling money away from these skill positions. And even though they were unsuccessful in getting Will Fries, if they had gotten Will Fries, they would have allocated $120 million to the trenches in the past 48 hours. They didn't get Will Fries, obviously. They lost out, but all reports indicate that they were one of the final bidders. So they were willing to allocate, whatever it was, $60 to $80 million for Will Fries. I know they didn't land him, but I think they may be showing a fresh, improved approach and willingness to do that. I don't know. I mean, can you guys remember the last time John Schneider was willing to throw or had an offer on the table for a guard or an offensive line guy that was like in the ballpark of like 18 to 20 million dollars in free agency? Because I know we didn't land him, but like reports indicate that they had a solid offer on the table. I'm literally racking my brain. Can you guys remember anything free agency wise over the past decade?
No, it would have been the biggest deal they'd ever offered for a free agent that was not already on the team, like Brown or something like that.
This is going to be a team that, this sounds awfully familiar, that wants to run the football very effectively. They want to control the line of scrimmage. And too often they have allocated resources in the exact opposite direction, whether it's the Jamal Adams trade, throwing a ton of money at receivers over the past several years, these opposite, outside of the trench type positions. This seems like a double down or a refocus on the fundamentals of owning the line of scrimmage. And, we'll see if they're successful in doing it, but this is, I think they're trying to reshape the identity of this football team.
Can I say something too? Part of these expectations are our own fault, right? John Schneider is who he is. I don't know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 10,000 times, it's shame on me. Why do we expect him to do this any different? He's only going to pay so much for the lines. He's only going to look into so many of these players. And so I think that that's partially on us as a fan base too, that it's important that we understand this is just not who he is. This is not what he's going to do. But he's also never, ever going to admit that they're rebuilding, ever.
Okay, so I have a question.
Go ahead, Evan.
I have a question and I'll throw this your way, Brian, and it's kind of like leading off of what Dana just said. Do you think with signing Sam Darnold, there was some sort of assurances that John gave to Sam's group in terms of saying, this is a position group we're addressing, you're going to go in with a solid guard group, like we're going to add a veteran? Because if I was Sam's agent, if I was Sam's side, I need some context. I need some information in terms of how they plan to address that position.
I doubt it. I mean, I'm sure they talked about it maybe a little bit, but you don't need assurances when you're paid $100 million. Like that's your assurance, and you'll do what you're told. I mean, I don't think it's like that, but that's kind of like, I think teams are like, look, if there's someplace else you want to go, that's your right. Here's what we value at. Here's how we see you. Here's how we're going to use you. And here's our vision for our team. So yeah, I think they've got some of that information, but no, I don't think so. And honestly, I see it a little differently, Dana. Like I completely commiserate with what you were saying about you gotta believe who someone tells you that they are. Mm-hmm. And John Schneider has told us who he is for 15 years when it comes to interior offensive line.
Yeah.
But to Evan's point, he did just do that differently.
That's fair.
So that's not what he's done. And the fact that there was only one offensive lineman that they felt that they deemed worthy of going to that level with, and that there weren't a lot of others, you can blame them for that, but that's also just the state of the market. Like the report from Bob Condata that came out today was that it wasn't a matter of years and it wasn't a matter of money that kept them from making the deal, that they wanted a physical on a guy that had a broken leg before they committed all this money. And I read that as like, man, I wish they just like maybe bend on that. But I can also understand John Schneider is being responsible with money that's not his, like I think that's part of his job, and it might be part of the way that they do business. And I kind of respect that. And then the other thing that they said is Tevin Jenkins, Mekhi Becton, Bob said, not going to be Seahawks. Mm-hmm. And so there's reasons for that. As I mentioned earlier on my other show, John Benton has coached Mekhi Becton before. You can be pretty sure if they thought he was a guy that would fit in their system and the guy that they wanted in the room, they would be going after him. They're not. Tevin Jenkins, a guy that's hurt a lot, and I've got enough information on this to know that his reputation is that his injuries are sometimes like a hamstring or whatever, and maybe doesn't play through those things, and how much does he really want to play? And when you give that guy a bunch of money, is that the veteran voice and the veteran experience that you want to inject into the middle of a very young offensive line that you're trying to make aggressive and gritty? So I don't think those guys are options. That sucks. But
So what I'm hearing from you and what I'm assuming then is that you're saying it truly is the level of where these players were at that he wasn't willing to bet this. Not that it wasn't the position. It was, and I've heard from other places too, other national media. It's like, yeah, this O-line group is going to get paid a lot, but they aren't like the cream of the crop O-line group. One or two players very good, but yeah. So I mean that's fair, and I'll give this much on that one, just a little bit.
You don't have to give anything because honestly, until it changes,
he'll proven otherwise.
He deserves all the criticism.
Yeah.
I think he earns that. But I guess I saw it a little bit differently. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
This offseason, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Evan?
I will say this. I like that they held firm on the physical. I do not think they should have bent on that. Like, you've got a guy, you mentioned this on the pod a couple of days ago, Brian. You've got a guy who has shown solid improvement for 5 games, which is 5 games, but it's improvement. So very small sample size of strong production, combination of a broken, leg or something like that. Like, I'm sorry, if you're going to throw out $80 million to that guy, we need a physical. So I'm comfortable with John not bending on that, to be honest. I think it was the right call.
I think there's another thing going on here, which is they want people who want to be here. Mm-hmm. I think that was the case with Gino and DK. And I think Ernest Jones is a great example. Jaron Reed. All those are examples of people who either did or did not want to be here. And they're either here or not based on that. And if you're somebody that you're offering this much money to, and you say, hey, man, we just need you to fly out for a physical, but then you're our guy. And he's like, no. Then does he really want to be here?
Well, it makes me a little like, are you almost hiding something? It makes me a little suspicious that he is worried about his, you're telling me he couldn't wait 24 hours? Like, really? I don't know. It makes me suspicious, right or wrong.
Yeah. I do think that's a really good point, though, Brian, that people have a tendency to forget. It's not that Seattle didn't want him enough or didn't necessarily any of the players that maybe that they went after. It was sometimes the players don't want to come here. They have family somewhere else. They have, it's only 2 hours to my grandparents' house, whatever. Maybe they already owned a home there. Maybe they've played there before. Their bus buddy from college is there. There's 1,000 reasons why players don't go to teams. And I sometimes, to give John Schneider a little credit, sometimes he doesn't have control of that. So, I think that's something we need to keep in mind a little bit too.
So how are you guys feeling about the rest of this? Let's just back up for a second. As a Seahawks fan, where's your vibe level? Like, are you a 10? Like, this is, I'm so excited about what's going on here. Are you a 1? Like, I don't give a about what's going on here. Like, I'm out.
I need clarity. Are we talking excitement, optimism, engagement? I need a very specific metric that we're tracking here.
Direction of the team.
So encouragement by the direction of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like an 8 or 9, guys.
Really?
Oh yeah. They gutted this thing to the bone. Like they gutted it. They took the holdovers from the previous regime and they were like, "You're gone. You're out of here. We are starting over. This is a rebuild." DK Metcalf gone. Geno Smith gone. Tyler Lockett, that one stings a little bit. Gone. I miss T-Lock. But like the holdovers, with the exception of Jason Myers from this previous regime, are still around.
He's gone.
They're not around anymore. But but I will say this, like I mean this sincerely. With this massive change comes massive risk, but also serious opportunity, I think, for improvement. I have a lot of hope that this is, the next 15 months, you could say, are going to be defining moments for John Schneider's career, frankly. Like, I think what happens in the next 15 months will either set up this franchise for success or failure in the following seasons. They have to find a quarterback. I do not think Sam Darnold is the future of this football team behind center. I think they have to draft a quarterback this year or next. But the reality is like they have a ton of unproven young talent across the board. There's opportunity. There's not like entrenched veteran talent with the exception of the defensive line, but like they're just going to have to rely on youth to take the step forward. I remember being so frustrated towards like the end of like the Legion of Boom days where I remember arguing with you, Brian, on this podcast about like Pete not letting his guys competing, right? And like we saw rookies like showing flashes. They couldn't like usurp veterans because they had a strong name and, you know, sort of like brand presence. But like there's just so much opportunity cutting this thing to the bone. Like, yes, it could fail spectacularly. Absolutely. It very well may. But like there's hope and I think excitement with the unknown of this. And Seattle hasn't done a rebuild like this. They really have not. Like they've done a little ton of retools, but I don't care if they spin it as not a rebuild. This is a rebuild.
I think they did with the Russell Wilson trade for what it's worth. I thought that they tore it down pretty far. And the fact that it did not reflect that was because they had an amazing draft that year and a coach who did a really good job, and Geno Smith, who came out of kind of nowhere to have that year. But Dana, where are you? Where's your 0 to 10, your 1 to 10?
I'm not totally where Evan's at.
Shocker.
I know that he loves the chaos, and you guys know I don't love the chaos, but I will say I'm probably at like a 6 or 7. So I'm not. I think that I really like the youth of this team, and I think that was one of the things that when Pete Carroll and John first started, that was one of the exciting. They're all so young and so cocky and so obnoxious, and I loved every bit of that. But so I do like the youth of this team, and I like the players, the young players that they have on here. You know, we really like, especially in, you know, JSN. He's good. I don't know that he's the guy yet, but he's good, right? But I do on the defensive side of the ball for sure. I really like the youth on this one. But I think the thought of it failing spectacularly makes me real nervous as someone who lived through the 90s with this team. And so that makes me real nervous. And I have serious trust issues with John Schneider. I mean, that's where mine is. I have grown to enjoy our head coach some. I enjoy him a lot more than I did this time last year. But I love what he did with the defense. Absolutely. I'm thrilled with that. But I just don't have a ton of trust still in John Schneider. So I need him to really nail this for a couple of years without the guidance of Pete there. And I know people think that I'm just like this crazed Pete stan, which I'm really not. I just really like the way he coaches, but I think that he has to prove himself individually. Does that make sense more?
It does.
And we've seen him stumble in the past. So I just need a little more from him before I'm like all in. So
this is a comment from a member, Josh Whitfield, I think is well said. He says, I'm completely unsure, but obsessed. And I believe in the coaching staff. I think that's kind of where I'm at. And one of the things that's kind of interesting, you guys have been seeing this lately. Well, the last few days, the last few weeks, like a week plus, the engagement on this channel has been crazy. 20, 30, 35,000 people tuning in. It's way more than normal. And I'm not crediting this, like, you guys are awesome. Like, we're fine, but we're doing the same things we've been doing, right? People are interested. They are, like, their attention is there. And that's different. There was actually a study I saw about which teams had the biggest ads, or like which social media accounts for the official teams grew the most last year. And the Seahawks were like 30th or 31st. Like the amount of like engagement was just like one of the least. And I think we all felt it, right? Like it's just apathetic. Like there's not a lot to grab onto. Well, they got people's attention now. People want to know what's going on. And I will say this. I'm really interested in seeing how this all turns out. I think the team, as it currently is constituted, has a decent chance of being really boring. Like, there's not a lot of personality to this team yet. And I care mostly about winning. Like, I want to see them beat the crap out of other teams, especially the 49ers. Now the Rams are high on my list too. But I also, like, you want to have a little flavor, right? You want to have a little swag. And there's some guys that could, but it's pretty vanilla right now. So that's like, you don't go and build a team with that in mind. But from a fan engagement standpoint, I do think that that's real. Dana, go ahead.
You should just say they're a little beige, right? Like, and that is valid. You need to have someone. It's true. I'm right. But the thing of it is that people come to the stands to see their favorite players, right? They want to come. Who is that on this team right now? We really like Mafe. We really like, Leo. We like these players, but who are you like? I want to go see Marshawn Lynch. I want to go see whoever it may be. You know what I mean? They don't have that this year. They didn't have it last year. So they got to find it.
They don't. That's a reality. Go ahead, Evan.
I like that comment that you brought up on the screen, though. It's like it's been so many years in the past decade where it's like, yeah, they've been like a really high floor football team. They're going to win like 9-10 games, right? But I didn't feel super confident in their ability to get over the hump. Now it feels like with such a high level of risk, it could swing either direction really strongly. And it has my interest at a very like intimate level for the first time in a while, to be quite honest with you.
Can I give you something that I think is pretty exciting?
Yeah.
So the Seahawks have 5 picks in the first 92 of the draft, right? And everyone's got opinions on John Schneider's drafting. That's fine, right? I'm going to read to you every pick in the top 92 that John Schneider has made over the last 3 years, okay? Every pick over the last 3 years from, up to 92. Okay, we're going to start in 2022. His picks then, Charles Cross, Boye Mafe, Ken Walker, Abe Lucas. Okay? 2023, Devin Witherspoon, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Derek Hall, Zach Charbonnet. 2024, Byron Murphy, Christian Haynes. That's a pretty friggin' good hit rate of high quality players that you all feel pretty, I think, excited about. And I think Christian Haynes is the one name you're like, I'm still holding out hope. Like, it was just his rookie year. We'll see. But like, you're about to add 5 more in that place where he's actually had a pretty damn good hit rate. So I love building. I love seeing the new faces come in. Man, if you add a Tate Ratledge to this team, I'm telling you, like, you add even a Gray Zabel. Like, there's so many of these characters that you can add to this team that are great and have personality. And yeah, to your point, Dana, teams do reflect their coach a little bit. And Mike is never going to win like a most engaging personality contest. He's very trustworthy. He's very earnest. He's very smart. And he's very tough. And I think that's probably where this team is headed. There's worse places to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's the same too about, I know we're going to talk about ownership later, and I know we're going to talk about, general managers too, but we don't want a Jerry Jones type team, right? So
Right.
This is really not so bad. And I know, you guys know I like to pick on Mike mostly because it drives you guys crazy, but it's like, I get that. The thing of it is to me is that, wait, no, this is what I say. Do you guys remember how pissed you were when they picked Zach Charbonnet? Oh my God, you guys lost your minds. And so even in the moment of the draft, we can make a wrong call. And so I think you're right. I think that's fair. He's drafted very well over the last couple of years. That should bring a little more trust from people.
I'll add just one thing real quick here. I think it's important to vocalize this. John Schneider made the most important decision of his career in the past 12 months, and that was hiring Mike McDonald. We were so nervous as a fan base, rightfully so, about moving on from Pete, whether you're a detractor or a proponent. Nailing that hire is critical. The fact that we have any confidence in this coaching staff moving forward, I think is a massive win. Like, we should not take that for granted. They have the foundation here. And I just think it's worth exciting. I think it's exciting and worth mentioning that, like, that hire, that decision laid the foundation for any hopes of future success.
I agree. And I have enjoyed watching 49ers Twitter just melt down. That's been a nice,
This over the past couple of days, or
oh my God. They're like, what is going on? Our ownership has gotten cheap all of a sudden. I see their content creators trying to calm people down. Like, the bill comes due at some point and you've got to, like, blah, blah. I'm like, all things that we've said for years. And I saw something on NFL Network today where they're like, look at all this talent that they lost. Think about that they still have all this talent. And that's why they made it to all these NFC championships and Super Bowls. And they didn't say it, but I was sitting there thinking, but they didn't win. Like, they had the most talent in the league and they didn't win. They do have Trey Brown now. So I'll root for Trey. But
you know what I'm gonna start doing? I'm gonna start sending some personal handwritten letters to Parag Marathe, 49ers president of EVP of football operations. I'm just gonna commend him for his fiscal responsibility and conservatism.
I have to tell you something, Evan, that you don't know. And I know, Dana, we're gonna get to Patriot questions in a second, but I'm gonna out this on the air. So I want you to prepare yourself. Just so you guys know the power of Evan. Evan has harassed Broncos fans so much, and he has become like their anti-god, whatever that is for you.
They hate me.
I got an email out of the blue from some random Broncos fan when the Seahawks traded Geno Smith, and all it said was like, you tell that Evan Hill that we were in the playoffs last year and now you don't even have a quarterback. And I was like, what is going on here?
They hate me. They hate me. I don't know why. I mean, I said some derogatory.
I could pull up 10 tweets in a second that would tell you why, but
Bro.
Oh my God, dude. You're the best. You're the best. Let's do Patreon questions. For folks that haven't already, patreon.com/hawkbloggers, where you sign up, get access to all the audio versions of the pod. They will always be ad-free up there. And we will have access to the Slack channel where you get to ask us patron questions every time we do a show. Dana, what do we got this week?
All right. So the first one, it says, for Brian, from Matt G. It says, today you defended ownership against the rumor mill. Totally fair. Previously, you had noted that the Seahawks may have a cash problem given how many young guys they have to extend. Today, I heard you say ownership is not the problem, but I did not hear you say cash is not the problem. So flat out, is cash the problem, generally not specific to Fries? And can you disentangle the two perceived issues?
Yeah, that's an awesome question.
Great
I appreciate
question.
you bringing that up because it could be confusing. Every single team, no matter their ownership situation, has a budget. They have a cash budget for their year. Like any business has a cash budget for the year. And they go in, they do projections based off like who's coming onto the cap, off the cap, contracts they expect to sign, extensions. Like they have a rough idea and then they operate under it. And like any other business, there are options where you can say, we want to do something that's an exception. We want to go over the budget for this reason. What's up?
Just a real quick clarification. Much better contract details than we expected for DeMarcus Lawrence. 3 years, $32.49 million base value. There's an extra $10 million in incentives and escalators, but the base value is much lower than we thought.
That's really helpful. Thank you for sharing. So
that's huge.
Just to finish the clarification. So you have to operate within that budget like any business does, but it's not like the Seahawks, there's any report anywhere that the Seahawks have an abnormally low or strict budget relative to any other team. And so when I'm talking about cash versus cap, there are situations where this is a year where you've got a lot of your draft picks coming up that you want to extend. You were going to have Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. And the difference there is you could sign DK Metcalf, not anymore, or Geno Smith, not anymore, to an extension. and the cap hit would be spread out over multiple years of the deal. But the cash for the signing bonus, in a lot of cases, comes due that year. And so you have this big pile of cash outlay, even if the cap space is spread out. So I don't know how well I'm doing at explaining the difference here, but that's why I've said this particular year could be a challenge from a cash perspective for any team that hits this. It's not specific to our ownership. Turns out, with the way things have happened, I'm not sure that's going to be as much of an issue. And then the other thing that I've said clearly as of today is that what Pab Kandada's gotten to as well, or in a different kind of way, this notion that the reason the Seahawks didn't sign Will Fries is because ownership would not allow the deal or the length or the money is just not true. And so that's just a rumor that's been out there, a report that's been out there that is not true. So that's hopefully gets that cleared up.
Awesome. Okay. That was a really good question. Thank you so much for that. All right, Matt. All right. This is from Hawks fan Matt Man. Different Matt. Evan, Evan, I'm so giving you this one. If you had the opportunity to interview John Schneider, what are a couple things you'd love to ask that he'll never be asked on his radio spots?
This is Dave Pearson's worst nightmare. He's constantly like, don't let Evan tell you what to ask. And I'm like, I don't. Trust me.
We have to skip this question because I want to really think about a good answer to this. So you have to give me some time.
Okay. We are so coming back to that one because I really want to. All right. Let's see. Okay. So Colin wanted to know if I was on tonight, and then he had a question for me. So this is from Colin for me. It says, how giddy are you about the D-line that has Murphy, D-Law, Big Cat, Reed, Hall, Nuoso, and Mafe? Says, I know the answer, but I want to see the expression on your face. I'm damn happy. I am very happy. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be interesting to watch. He's going to be D-Law's going to be a rotational player to a certain extent, but I just think it's going to be. Evan, I think it was you that said today, it looks like Seattle just wants to murder a quarterback. And that's exactly what I'm all in for that. So thank you, Colin. I love that because I love it so much. All right. Then Brendan.
Well, should we come back to Evan?
Evan, you ready?
What's like the number one thing I could ask John Schneider in
that he wouldn't be asked on his radio spot? Because we know that.
This shouldn't be hard for you, Evan. Like, what would you want to ask him?
I'm debating between something like intensely sexual or football oriented.
You could do both.
He did say a few questions. He did.
I'd be super curious to know about any big trade. This is a boring answer, but I'd be super curious to know what any near big trades he almost made but didn't successfully execute. Right? Like what could have happened if Seattle had pulled the trigger on A, or the opposing GM had, agreed to something. It's just the what ifs could be very interesting. And then also I want any and all dirt on the Russell Wilson, like Pete Carroll saga. I want all the background information on that. So boring answers, but those are like the what ifs.
Okay, but Jen Mass's comment is the best. Ask me if Russ changed the play call. That was what I would want to know too. Right? Nicely done, Jen. All right. Let's see. So next, this one's from Braxton. I skipped Brendan. We're gonna do Brendan first. Okay. So what one signing of the remaining free agents would make you feel more confident about where the team is heading into the draft? Brian.
What free agent signing would make me more confident heading into
of the
draft?
ones that are left that would give you some confidence going into the draft?
I like Will Hernandez as a guard.
Thank you.
Like Dalton Risner might make some sense because he played with Sam Darnold last year in Minnesota, the Risinator. So maybe that guy. At this point, there's not really like DeMarcus Lawrence was the name. I was like, if they get him, that would be a smart, good addition. I guess another name, it wouldn't really. I'll give you two other names. Marcus Williams, the safety, got released by the Ravens. It would be nice for the Seahawks not to need a safety in the draft, and that's a guy that Mike McDonald has familiarity with, so that might be a nice fit. And then the other one would be Cooper Kupp. I think I don't think Cooper Kupp is anything close to what he used to be, but I really like the idea of Cooper Kupp being the leader in that room and being the guy that's been there and the way he works and prepares and the way he blocks. I think there's something to that would be valuable. Plus, he's from Washington, and I just think I think that would be a good one to add to the crew.
Brian, I'm curious, how much would you go up to in terms of getting Coop here in Seattle?
I think like 14 million
per year.
Yeah. I mean, Tutu Atwell just got 10 million, dude. Like,
yeah.
But Coop, how old is Tutu Atwell?
He's younger, but he's done nothing. I think that's my number. What would you be comfortable going up to?
Man, it was honestly going to be lower, to be quite honest with you. You really think he could command 14 a year?
In this receiver market?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially with this draft. Yeah.
I'm trying to see what PFF. Oh, they didn't because he wasn't.
Because he wasn't a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he'll get, but like, if we had like a tighter cap situation, I might feel differently. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's over 10.
I don't think I'd go past 10 for him, to be quite honest with you. I think he's kind of washed to an extent.
He is. He totally is. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying he's awesome.
But in that case, I would rather roll over the cap space then, honestly. It doesn't make them better this year, but are they really contending this year? Let's be serious. They're not. Come on.
No. So we've been saying that a lot lately.
Yeah, it's fair.
Let's just be honest about it, though. Instead of John Schneider lying to the Seahawks fan base and to Jody Allen saying, we're competing for a Super Bowl this year. BS. No, you're not.
No, you're not. Yeah. All right. So this one is Braxton's. It says, since it sounds like Seattle is unlikely to sign Jenkins or Becton to start at guard, who is the most realistic starting guard signing Seattle could make in free agency? Is there anyone?
The other name that you didn't mention, Brian, that I was kind of surprised by was Scherf. What's your thoughts on him? He
was the worst zone blocking guard in the entire NFL last year. He's 33 and he has been majorly declining.
Yeah.
So I think the reason he has so many F's in his last name is because that's the grade you'd get for signing him.
I will say, I agree with you though. If they got Will Hernandez, it would actually spike my optimism much higher.
I really like Will Hernandez. He's coming off a serious knee injury, so I don't know if he's still Will Hernandez anymore, but I like the guy for sure.
He's under 30 though. I don't know. He's a good football player.
He's not a bad football player. He's a good football player.
Was it in a couple of years ago that he got a huge deal in free agency? I forget which team he went to.
He's never gotten a huge deal. He's always just been kind of
really?
He's one of those guys that has been really consistent in his job. He's never been great, never been a Pro Bowler, but he's exactly what you should look for generally, which is a quality veteran.
You're right. He didn't get much from the Cardinals. Cardinals fans really want him back, by the way.
Yeah, I would assume they do.
I mean, the market for him is only anticipated to be $4 or $5 million a year. And to me, that's a no-brainer.
It would be. I would be excited I would be excited. I've wanted him since he was in the draft. Jeff and I both really wanted him in Seattle.
I do remember that. He's probably my number one remaining free agent target that I would really be excited by.
All right. So this one is from Troy, but I think we just kind of answered it. He says, feelings on going after Kupp, signing a cheap vet wide receiver seems crucial to me as signing a vet O-line. But now that MVS is signed, it seems less important. I think we kind of already talked about that a little bit. So let's go into this one. Chris Bailey, on a scale. We kind of already did this one too. Sorry. You guys knew exactly what we were going to talk about. On a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being MacGruber and 10 being MacGyver, how do you rate the offseason at this point? Brian, what is your number?
Yeah. So I don't think that it's a scale. MacGruber is either you explode or you're saved. And I don't think we can answer that question yet. That
Mm-mm.
binary is not decided. So,
Yeah.
like, I would say it's closer to McGruber than it is to MacGyver because of the offensive line situation, and it's just massively risky, the road that we're walking right now. But so is trying to defuse a bomb. So we'll see. We'll see.
Got to wait for that draft. That's going to be key at this point. All right.
Wait, one more thing.
Yes.
Anyone that knows McGruber, if John walks out in the draft and has a celery stalk between his butt cheeks, then you know things have gone the wrong way.
We should throw John Schneider in at guard with the way things are going on this. That boy plug the middle.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right. So this one is from Imani. Name a plausible signing or trade that would put your mind at ease. We kind of already just did that one.
Ooh,
Until draft
Can I?
day. Yes,
can I,
please do.
So I saw some chatter about this on Seahawks Twitter today. Brian, Dana, I haven't had a chance to pick your brain on this. Do you think that they could be saving cap space for a potential guard trade? Like,
Who?
I don't know. Like,
I have not been able to scrub through everyone's roster, but it seems so unlikely. What's a team that's going to be like, you know what? We don't need a good guard. It's like, oh yeah, we don't need a good quarterback. Like, it's honestly, it's a hard position to find nowadays.
Well, that's just it. Everyone needs one. Not everyone has one. So,
but is there not like a team that like
the only guy that I put on a list that made some sense to me was Cesar Ruiz for the Saints, since Gary Kubiak, Clint Kubiak, and John Benton know him from New Orleans. They could, if they took him as a post June 1 trade, the Saints would save a little bit of cap space, so it's not out of the question.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's the guy that you go make a deal for. Like, I don't know.
What about a Quentin Nelson, man? Left guard for the Colts?
You think that they're gonna like have Anthony Richardson? They've already lost Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They're gonna throw Quentin Nelson just like they're trying to be the Seahawks Midwest version or something.
I don't know, man. They don't got a quarterback. I mean, AR is kind of like down in the dumps over there, is he not?
Somebody put out the Browns. That is a name I will throw out because I know Wyatt Teller, who everybody hates because of what he did to Uchenna Nwosu. But Teller is going to be a free agent next year. Is there a chance that they're like willing to take something for a guy that's in the last year of his deal? Maybe, but this is a whole nother show.
I'll just tell you, I would ship Reek so fast in a guard trade. Goodbye, Tariq. Goodbye. You can go club in Miami.
The Browns have done stupider things, so you never know. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So let's go to the next one. This one is from Nick. What are your expectations of this offense? Should we expect them to hit the ground running or take a year to settle in? Evan, you want that one?
I am very concerned about the pass protecting competencies of this interior offensive football line, mostly because I don't even know who's going to be starting at guard for us anymore because Laken Tomlinson is not a Seahawk anymore. And Brian is going to give me a very smug smile because we have Laken Tomlinson's number one and only fan in the universe on this podcast, by the way. One of one, folks, right here in Seattle.
Other than the team that signed him to a deal that's 4 times what he was signed to from Seattle last year on the second day of free agency.
He has blackmail on that football team. It's that simple. I have real concerns about this team's ability to relieve pressure from their quarterback. And I think Sam Darnold is not as good as Geno Smith at it. And there's real concerns about that. So don't know what to say. Like this is going to be the weakest part of the football team.
Okay. So I'm going to spin this a little bit and give it to you, Brian. Talking about the offensive scheme. So we know the O-line. We get that, right? We know we only have one wide receiver. We get all that. But let's talk about Kubiak's scheme. And I will remind people to be careful not to shorten his name to KK. Put Kubs, K-U-B-S. It looks way better. But how long do you think it'll take for his scheme to settle in?
I think pretty quickly. In fact, that was one
Right.
of the things that New Orleans folks that covered the Saints were talked about quite a bit, was how impressed they were with how quickly that staff that's now moved in en masse to Seattle were able to install the offense. And I'm gonna make probably the most unpopular case right here, and I'm gonna see how this sounds. I will give you the reasons why, with very little additional change beyond the draft, the Seahawks offensive line can be significantly better than it was last year. Okay, I'm gonna do this really quick. One, Abe Lucas, Charles Cross are going to be there for the whole year. They're not going to start out with Mike Jarrell, George Fant getting injured the first time, Stone Forsythe for the whole time. You're going to have 2 good tackles. And by the way, once Abe Lucas came back, the offensive line play did improve. Good tackle play gets you a long way. 2, this scheme takes pressure off of the offensive line. There is a lot of misdirection, a lot of boot. There's a lot of things that have quicker passes, quicker getting the ball out of the hands, and to open receivers. Like there's a lot of schemed open plays, and if they're not there, you're throwing it away. 3, it's going to be more run oriented. There are going to be fewer dropbacks by a lot than there were last year. So the fewer chances you have to sack a quarterback, the fewer sacks they're going to be. 4, you have multiple interior offensive line, and they're going into their second season. They were rookies last year. Jalen Sundell, Sato Alamea, Christian Haynes, all coming in. This scheme fits, especially Christian Haynes better, and Jalen Sundell better than what they were in last year. And then finally, you got 5 picks in the first 92 in a draft that is deep in interior offensive linemen. And so all of that, and I'll add one more just for good measure. You've got more offensive line coaches on this staff than the Seahawks have ever had. You've literally got like 4 guys, maybe 5, that have coached offensive line during their career. The amount of one-on-one coaching and the congruence, the alignment of how they're going to coach the position and the steps for that position is very different than it's been. So I'm not saying that's going to take them from the worst offensive line to the best, but I believe all of those things can mean a pretty big jump to the level of offensive line play. And that's without knowing who they get in the draft.
All right. We believe you.
Nobody believes me,
I
but
do
I
a
want to
little
put
bit.
I'm
It
putting
makes
it on
sense.
tape.
Yeah.
It's like March 12th. I'm putting it on tape right here.
Okay. Well, actually, this is kind of the perfect little segue, because Austin's question is, which second-year offensive lineman do you think is going to make the biggest jump this year with the new staff and scheme?
Who do you think, Evan? I got Christian Haynes. You took too long, man. Like you like I'm trying to save you from yourself.
I think he's the obvious one, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think John Ben can get more out of him than what was our previous offensive line coach's name again? It's the weird looking guy, fluffy hair.
It wasn't that fluffy. No, you're talking about Andy Dickerson. That was a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Yes. I forgot about that.
No, last year was Scott Huff.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot. My bad.
Oh, funny. All right. So there's one more question, and I think it's something that we do need to talk about a little bit. So this question is from Nick. It says, not a question, but can you break down all the Corbin drama today? I had to work and missed it. Thanks so much. And that's the last question.
I kind of like, I don't love the framing of that question. I'll take this one because I think it's like it's taken on a life of its own. So, you know, as I've said on this show multiple times, Corbin like works his ass off. Corbin, I don't know anybody that produces more content than Corbin, and I'm on this do this show every single day. But I don't also produce 2 or 3 articles a day the way Corbin does. Like he puts out a crazy amount of output. I think he knows a lot about football. I think he's shown that over time, and I think he has good stuff there. I think that if you're looking and I think if you're talking about drama, I don't feel like there's drama. I feel like what there is there are reports that are made. Why are you guys smiling? What's funny?
Oh, I was reading something. Sorry. No, you're good.
Okay.
The Andy Dickerson was in there. It's funny. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't think that there's drama. I think that what there is Dan Veens reported and I've talked about as well about Dan, and I like Dan, and whatnot, that he believes, he has a source that said that ownership was the reason this deal didn't get done with Will Fries. I think Corbin had some similar thoughts about that the reason this deal didn't get done was because there were the years remaining, like that they weren't willing to go to 5 years. And Bob Condata comes out and has a starkly different report, that it was not about years and it wasn't about money. I have told you that it was not ownership that stopped it. And end of the day, people can choose to believe whatever reports they have from whomever reports them. I don't have a problem with Corbin or Dan or anyone else doing what they're going to do. That's, their jobs, or at least for Corbin, it's a job. I know Dan does it out of a passion. And even if there is mistakes in who reported, like let's say Bob's wrong. I don't think Bob did that intentionally. I don't think he would do it intentionally. And I think his source could be wrong. Similarly, that could be the case with Dan or with Corbin. So people wanting to make it about the people, I think, are missing the point. Where I speak up in this stuff is where I think that there's misinformation around and rumors that start to spread. And yesterday, when people were so pissed off about the Will Fries thing that they didn't get them, they were looking for who to blame. And obviously John Schneider already is persona non grata, gets all the hate. And then this report came out that, oh man, it's the owners that are keeping this from happening. And all the attention turned there. And they're like, oh, that's it. And I just think that's a very, like, as I've said a couple times, and I'll just say again, my perspective, without even knowing what I know, is the likelihood that Dan, Corbin would have information, a scoop that nobody else on the Seahawks beat have, including Bob, who's been there for like 30 years, Brady, who's I think the most connected person on the beat, or any national reporter, that it's ownership that's hamstringing the Seahawks operation is unlikely. I think it's unlikely. So for me, from a common sense standpoint, it doesn't pass the sniff test. I then found, enough information where I feel confident that it's not the case. So, I don't think it's drama. I don't think anyone's doing anything intentional, but, I will speak up in situations where I feel like there's a misinformation that's potentially harmful, out there. And that's all.
Awesome. That's it. There's no more.
Cool. Evan, you unmuted. What's up?
No, just
He's like, I'm just waiting to talk.
All right. Well, you guys are free. We've got 12 super chats. So I'm going to go through these. Do you guys want to stick around? You want to head out?
let's talk to
Let's
this.
do it. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to hit through these with you. And Dana, these are coming your way, some of them, because you didn't get a chance to answer too many questions. All right. The Cat's in the Hat, which I love that, says, how hyped are you for DeMarcus Lawrence after let's give this to Evan. After Mike McDonald was able to do with the older guys like Clowney and Van Noy. We know that Dana doesn't want to get excited about Jadeveon Clowney, but Evan, you remember what the old heads did in Mike McDonald's defense in Baltimore. Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy had career years. Do you think that that's what's coming with DeMarcus Lawrence?
It's very possible. And I'll say even Aiden Durd, like I'm excited for him and his impact because they obviously have a pre-existing relationship and he got the most out of him during, his prime years in Dallas as well. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a guy that's a veteran leader, coming from Dallas. And I mentioned it earlier, but like, I think the locker room presence he brings alone is going to have a real impact on this football team. Like you saw the players in Dallas be like, really like upset that he left them. I think that stuff matters. Like having those types of voices that we were talking about earlier, those types of leaders in the locker room and still being like a productive force, it can marry into some pretty, powerful outcomes. So I'm very excited about it.
All right,
I have seen Clowney's name way too many times today. That's all I'm going to say.
Corey Coleman says, I believe that drafting a young interior offensive line will play out better in the long run. The O-line needs to grow and build off together to get the consistency they need going forward. Do you agree with that, Dana?
I do. And, we keep talking about needing veteran presence, but, Cross and Lucas have been there a minute now. So maybe we need to give them, a little more credit for that to help kind of some of these, rookies going into their second year. And we do need to remember that huge second year jump that most players make.
Great. Agreed with that. Rainier Golden says, no question, just loving the coverage. Thank you. Well, appreciate that from you. We've got Jose Rodriguez. We love Jose. He's got his own channel. Make sure you check out Jose's channel as well. He's been a member for 6 months. Says, DeMarcus Lawrence could be the equivalent of Cliff Averill. Anyone buy that? Cliff is a little younger.
Leadership, maybe?
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like the Cliff Averill, like we were talking about before. I think that's a good one. That's a good point, Jose. Bill Anderson, I don't know why, but I feel like there is going to be a big trade coming. Evan, do you think there's a big trade coming?
It makes you wonder with like the cap space that Seattle has, right? I know if you look at over the cap, the Sam Darnold and DeMarcus Lawrence deals and the wide receiver deal haven't processed, but those are not going to be big year one cap hits either. So it's like worst case scenario, if I had to guess right now, I think this team, after all those deals, is still working with like $40 to $45 million of cap space. So,
do you think that they just roll that over, or do you think there's a chance? Like one thing I was wondering, like, does anyone ever do front-loaded deals where they'd extend their like 2022 class, but they put more money into this year, and then they are able to not have as big a cap hits in future years?
There's been some like one-offs, but it's very
not common.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. All right. Dana, Tyler Morano. Hey guys, will John Schneider get an O-lineman during free agency? How long does free agency last for? And then he's got a question for you, Evan, about which player you want to draft, if you have a draft crush. So I'll let you think about that. Dana, you take the first couple.
Free agency is always like it never stops, right? It goes through the summer, it goes through camp, it goes through all of that. That's why you see some guys who are like, don't get signed for a team until someone gets hurt in camp, right? So that goes on forever. I don't know now that he'll get an O-lineman during free agency. I think they might just been like, we didn't get who we wanted, so now we're just totally focused on the draft, which there's some good O-linemen to be had in this draft for sure.
I am 100% aboard the Jackson Dart train.
Really?
Yeah, and I think he's projected to go in the second round right now, right?
Yeah, some people have him in the first, but yeah.
I would not use the first, but I would see, what is it, 52 they have, I think?
50 and 52.
50 and 52. It would be really tempting to use one of those picks. Yeah. He's got a deep ball. He's got a deep ball.
He does have a deep ball. It's true, and he's mobile.
I like the aura of that kid, too. Like
you would.
He looks like he belongs in Dallas. Come on.
It's like an aura thing. I don't know.
No, the vibe check works for you and Jackson Dart for sure. Jeff Jennings says we have a pile of picks. We will get more O linemen and more. It's true, we will. Jeremy Yanasak says, do you expect us to trade any of these picks? Which picks are we most likely to trade down or into next season? I'll take this quickly. I think that there's a chance now that, especially because with the comp picks, they got an extra 5th round pick. They have 2 5th round picks now. I think day 2 is when John Schneider does his moving. Day 1, he generally sticks in picks. If anything, he trades back. I don't think he's going to trade up. But I do think they might want to move up from 50 to get a guy like Jackson Dart if they feel like he's going to be gone by when they want. Or maybe there's an offensive lineman that they really love that they move up to get. Although increasingly, I think they're going to probably do that in the first round based on the way free agency has gone. So that's my best bet. I hope they keep as many of those 5 picks in the top 92 as possible, though. I really do. Michael Hendrickson, the Steelers may be desperate to draft a QB. If Dart falls to us, can you envision an 18 for 21 swap? Dana, since I know what Evan's answer is, if Dart was available at 18 and the Steelers are desperate to draft him and they want to trade up, move 3 spots up, would you trade back with them and take some more picks from them?
It would depend on what O-linemen were left, right? Like it would totally depend on if some of those top tier O-linemen are still sitting there at 18 and you're not wanting to go after that quarterback anyway. You got to take those O-linemen, because I have started doing mock drafts, which I know would make you guys very proud. And I think I did 3 or 4 last night, and most of them were gone before they even got to 18. So I think that would be the trigger. Let's say that, the O linemen are gone and the one you want is not there anymore, maybe, but it would depend on what else they want to give me. I want more draft picks in this draft.
Yeah. All right.
You throw the dart at 18.
Throw the dart.
I'm not kidding.
You're the first person to come up with that, Evan. Evan, this one's for you. We got 4 more left, including this one. MJ Slicker says, with DK gone, I think is what this is meant to say, is a K9 extension more likely?
I hope so, but if you're asking Brian Nemhauser, apparently Zach Charbonnet is actually a better football player who can actually run through gaps and apparently isn't explosive. So I don't know. Yeah, I think Kenneth
Murray. Go, keep going.
Y'all are having a hard time with these
your
names
credibility
today.
is going up by the second, dude. Keep going.
I think Kenneth Walker is good at football, and I would extend him. I think Zach Charbonnet is not good at football, and I would not extend him. So,
wow, bold take. I'll make sure to let Zach know. Hawk Scoots says, "All right, Brian, I'm drinking the O-line Kool-Aid." That's right. Let's go. We got to believe. Dogzilla Monster, who is coaching the punt game this year? I don't know. It's still Jay Harbaugh. So I don't know. I don't know how much to add to that. We did see Jalen Darden was not tendered today, so maybe we'll have a new punt returner. And I think the Seahawks are taking a visit from a guy that was a kick returner. Bradley says, "What do you think about signing Kyle Juszczyk, Dana? Are you? I want to vote from both of you. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down on Kyle Juszczyk?"
For the pure piss off the fan base in San Francisco angle, hell yeah, bring him in. For bringing a lot to the team, I don't know that that's worth it. Although I did do a podcast last night with Bryce and Ryan, and Bryce was all in on bringing Cooper Kupp and Kyle in just to piss off the rest of the division. And I was like, you know what? I can maybe get behind that for the right number.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who we would steal from the Cardinals to complete that.
Right.
It won't be LJ
right?
Collier because he's returning to Arizona. I actually saw Cardinals fans celebrating. I was like, wow, how time changes.
Bless their heart.
All right. Last question. Major Hawks coverage says we didn't draft a QB with Geno, so why would we draft one with Darnold? John Schneider drafted 2 QBs in over a decade. I just don't see us doing it. All right, both of you. Do you expect the Seahawks to draft a QB? And given what Major Hawks coverage says here, which is true, why now versus why he hasn't done in the past?
I don't expect him to this year.
You do not? Okay. Evan, do you expect him to draft a QB?
I think I do. I just think about the timeline and I don't know who it is, but I think about the timeline and guarantees associated with the Darnold deal. I mean, ideally, I think it lines up well timing-wise. If you draft a quarterback this year, he's mentored, by Darnold for a year, so he's not thrown into the system immediately. They have an offseason or two to build up the offensive line, and hopefully he shows enough to sort of prove he can start in year 2, and then maybe you could even cut Sam Darnold in year 2. So I don't know. They could obviously punt till next year. We'll see, but I just think the timing makes sense for them to throw a dart this year and next. Frankly, they should do both.
But we thought that last year, and they didn't, right? Because they have this thing with Sam Howell, like they have a deal with that guy, right? And so, like in their head, like they really like him, and so I just don't know that they're going to consider any of these quarterbacks worthy of that when they just wait one more year.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know if Sam Howell is going to make the roster.
I don't disagree, but
like if he gets competition, he might not win the backup spot.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you're both right, actually, here. I don't think there's a guarantee they'll take a quarterback because it's not a guarantee that they will be able to maneuver to the right pick or that the right player will fall to them. And John Schneider's been kind of honest about that. He's like, I hope that the draft board speaks to us and that we can draft a quarterback this year. I genuinely think he wants to. I also think if that doesn't work out, he's not going to just take, some rando to say he drafted a quarterback. So the same way with Will Fries, hasn't gone after spending big on interior offensive line. He was going to do that this year. Now that he didn't, he's not just going to spend that much money on some guy that's not nearly as good or nearly as good of a fit for what they're wanting to do. So I think it takes a little bit of luck, but I think the intent there is to draft a quarterback. All right. It has been awesome to catch up with you guys. Thanks for staying a little bit longer on this Wednesday night. This has been another episode of Real Hawk Talk. Make sure you follow Dayna O'Gorman and Our Turf Football, all the great work that they do. Evan Hill, it's up to you if you want to follow him. It's an exciting affair, but I can't promise it's always going to be clean. Evan, great to see you. Dayna, great to see you. Thanks, everybody. I will see you tomorrow morning for another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Until then, have a good night.